and welcome back to NED Talks. Today I'm here with Miranda Harris, who is a member of the NED Expert Review Panel and a BANT registered nutritional therapist, as well as a senior lecturer with FHEA accreditation. So Miranda has written an expert review on this paper, which is available on the Nutrition Evidence Database, which is looking at intermittent fasting and the effects on glucose and lipid metabolism and insulin resistance. So welcome, Miranda, to the platform for the first time.
Hi.
So we're talking about this paper here. Here's Miranda's expert review. So could you start, Miranda, by just giving us an overview of the paper?
Yeah, so just a quick introduction to intermittent fasting, which includes things like time-restricted food intake and periodic fasting on 1 or 2 days. This is an alternative approach for weight management, which may reduce the risk of comorbidities such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, by improving insulin resistance and other metabolic factors. And this study summarizes the effect of intermittent fasting in studies less than 3 months on overweight or obese women with metabolic syndrome, which is defined as the presence of any metabolic dysfunction, including obesity, hyperglycemia, dyslipidemia, or high blood pressure. The study included 10 RCT studies, which were then meta-analysed for glucose and lipid factors, as well as insulin resistance, weight loss, and blood pressure. And all these factors were shown to have significant improvements after the intermittent fasting intervention. And despite limitations of the meta-analysis, the study demonstrates that intermittent fasting, regardless of type, has therapeutic effects on those with disordered lipid and glucose metabolism. And it might be a sustainable and alternative approach to something like a very low carbohydrate or low calorie dietary regime.
Wonderful. Okay, so an interesting alternative then to the more traditional weight loss dietary strategies. And as you were going and writing the expert review, were there any issues or considerations that particularly came up for you?
I think that one of the I think the positive factor is the alternative approach to a very low carbohydrate or low calorie diet for weight management and metabolic metrics. The study didn't have sufficient RCTs to differentiate between the different intermittent fasting regimes. So I think what would be really interesting would be to see future research that actually compared different intermittent fasting regimes, such as alternate days or time restricted. One example being a restriction of 16 hours. So all consumption of food would be within an 8-hour window, or something like fasting on 1 or 2 days during the week. So that would be really interesting. I think also considerations for males as well as females, because this was done in the studies were done in women who were either obese or overweight. So it'd be interesting to look at males and also different age ranges. So I think there's plenty of scope for further research.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because we talk about intermittent fasting, but it can mean so many different things, can't it? And some of the forms of intermittent fasting actually don't restrict calories at all, do they? They're actually just eat the same calories, but within a much smaller window. So yeah.
And that might be something that somebody would find practically more sustainable and less disruptive potentially within their environment. So it's all about, you know, what would somebody be more likely to be compliant to, and this seems to be a regime which is more flexible, and also doesn't feel quite like being on a sort of diet or on a restricted diet, which I think would also appeal to some people more than something like a very low carb diet or a very low calorie diet.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just to finish off, Miranda, have you got any key takeaways for either healthcare practitioners such as nutritional therapists, or indeed for those that are, that are suffering with impaired glucose metabolism?
Yeah, I think one of the main things are similar to intermittent fasting doesn't restrict calories. It also doesn't restrict any type of macronutrient. So it might be more preferential because it potentially won't exclude key nutrients, so essential fats or whole grains that are very important in the diet. And I think the other thing is that, as well as being an effective strategy for weight management, it also has shown that the improved glucose and lipid metabolism may help to reduce the risk factor of chronic health conditions in the future.
Fabulous. Okay, really interesting insights from you there, Miranda. Thank you so much. If you're interested, you can read more about Miranda and how to connect with her on the Nutrition Evidence Database by clicking on the Expert Reviewer tab. And of course, you're invited and encouraged to access the full expert review that Miranda has prepared for nutrition evidence on the database. So thank you so much for listening to this NED Talk, brought to you by the Nutrition Evidence Editorial team in partnership with BANT.